Wow, look at the Milky Way. In my chart here, I'm finding some constellations. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the American Space Museum and Starry Night Live. I'm Marquette, doing what I love best, stargazing. And on today's program, we've got going to talk about a special crew that went to the International Space Station. And then we're going to talk about seeing the three planets this weekend in the Milky Way. Another great opportunity with the moon rising way after midnight to do some stargazing this weekend. So we're glad that you're with us. We're sorry that Travis Thompson, Triple T, isn't. He had a commitment and couldn't be here. And we've also been missing Marty Winkle, my co-producer and cameraman for a year and a half on Stay Curious. He had a commitment also, but they'll both be back next week. But we're so glad that Jessica Galloway's behind the controls, flipping some of these switches and making us look good here on your favorite nonprofit, I guess, video podcast, huh? But we are close to the end of a cycling out at the International Space Station of these wonderful astronauts. And I told Jessica I love doing some old school once in a while. And there's our 7 astronauts that are floating over the Earth 17 times a day right now. They are flight engineer Peter Duprov, Shane Kimbrough, Megan MacArthur, Thomas Pesquet. You got commander is Hashidi from Japan, and flight engineers Oleg Novitsky and Mark Vandehey from America. And they will be cycling out back here soon. I know Kimbrough and MacArthur will, with probably Pesquet. They may keep Vandehey up there an extra tour of duty, which he might push the 11 months sent by Christina Cook not too long ago on the International Space Station. So we wanted to always acknowledge our space station astronauts up there. Here is Megan MacArthur working. I think that's Shane Kimbrough behind her and Mark Vandehey way in the back working in Destiny, America's module. They're always busy. Every moment of their day is planned. And then they have 2 hours of exercising they have to do. And then they get their 8-hour rest and communication with their families back home. And it's up and at them and do it again in the zero-G weightlessness of space. There are applications out there for your smartphone and computers to follow the track of the space station. It's fun to watch, and it gets as bright as the planet Jupiter that is now rising in the east of the sky. And we'll talk more about Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn here in just a minute. But we wanted to give you a little bit of space history on Sunday, September 26th, is the launch of this crew to the 7th docking of the Mir space station in 1997, okay? So we're talking 24 years ago, these astronauts, and they include to the right sitting down is Jim Weatherby, his 4th of 6 space flights. Jim Weatherby, I love to meet him. He was a one-time pilot and then 5 times a commander of a space shuttle. And his pilot was the first of 3 missions there, Mike Bloomfield. Then left to right is Scott Parazynski. Looks like Jean Luc Cretin of Canada, his 3rd and last. Vladimir Titov is there. And the lady is Wendy Lawrence, her 2nd of 4 missions to space. And they dropped off David Wolf at the International Space Station and brought back Mike Foale. And we took you out to outer space there for a second there, a little mind warp. That was nice. So a little about that. The 7th Mir docking continued the presence of the U.S. astronauts on the space station. And those astronauts that spent their time on the space station are these. There's the Mir space station right there. It was kind of nicknamed the Dragonfly, and you can see why. And these solar panels on there providing energy, and they had 4 or 5 stations on there, and one of them was America's, had their own Spectre module on there. And a lot of drama happened with our 7 astronauts up there that before this mission in 1997, STS-87, Daniel Golden, NASA administrator, was considering not replacing Wolf on there and just bringing back Foale and leaving Wolf as just a visitor there, not leaving him up there for the traditional 4 months. And it said Dan Gold made that decision the night before the launch. And I asked Triple T about that, and he didn't remember too much about that, but that's something to research there. That's kind of cutting it close whether you're going to let an astronaut stay up to 5 months on the Russian Space Station. The problem was when Jerry Linenger was there, they had a fire on the Mir. And then when David Foale was there, or Mike Foale, a cargo ship crashed into the Mir, into the American section, and it's damaging the solar arrays and the radiator of 4 solar panels. And this left Foale's personal effects and where he slept and everything quarantined off. They were very lucky that this didn't take that module off completely, and they would have had about 30 seconds to get to some safe area and shut that area off to stay alive. So they did do, of course, David Wolf stayed there about 5 months, and then the last person to stay, American to stay on the Mir, was Andy Thomas. So they did get confidence back in the Russian system. And the Russians have been great partners on the America's international, well, the American-driven International Space Station, 17 nations there. We probably wouldn't be able to do a lot of things as cleanly had we not had the experience of the Russian Salyut and then the Mir space stations, which was the direction that they took after we won the moon race in 1969. Wendy Lawrence was originally going to be on this Mir mission and stay 5 months there. The other woman that spent time on there was Shannon Lucid, all right? She spent 188 days with the Russians on the Mir space station. But Wendy Lawrence's stay on the Mir was scratched because of the minimum size restrictions on the Russian EVA extravehicular activity spacesuit for spacewalking. In other words, she was too small to fit in it, they were afraid. And she never did get to fly on the Mir. But love to meet her also. Wonderful. She had 4 missions, and this was her 2nd mission. And here are our Mir astronauts who have been on this station. And if I'm looking close here, oh, there, I can look up big up there and see left to right sitting down. That's Norm Thagard. John Blaha is next to him. Jerry Linenger is sitting there, and David Wolf. And behind is Andy Thomas, and of course Shannon Lucid, and Mike Foale there in the top. These 7 Americans can uniquely say that they lived with the Russians on a spaceship for at least 5 months. By the way, during the cooperation between the Russians and the Americans and taking the shuttle to the Mir space station, which the Russians loved because it was like opening the windows and letting fresh air in, because that beautiful shuttle, when it was up there, part of it was to replace all the bad air in the Mir and put new air in there. There was 49 humans punched a ticket to from America. 49 Americans punched a ticket. 5 of them were repeat flyers. 3 of them were at the Mir twice, and 1 did a triple at the Mir. 8 women and 7 separate crews visited the Mir, docked, and were inside the Mir space station. So some interesting things to help you stay curious about our wonderful American space program, and we always love bringing you some of the historical highlights of these days in history. And 24 years ago, we were dropping off David Wolf and bringing back Mike Foale from their adventures on the Mir. Plenty of good books written about that too. One of the best ones is called Dragonfly, that chronicles the fire and the crash of the cargo ship while Americans were on the Mir. So, and Jessica says we've got a comment from one of our Stay Curious friends out there.
We've got Dave Stang.
Yes.
Saying happy Friday, gang. Sun is shining again here in Michigan. We are ready for the first weekend of autumn on YouTube. And then Robert
Dave
Law.
Stang. There had to be Dave Stang. Okay,
yeah.
Hi Dave.
And Robert says he watched and recorded the shuttle missions to Mir.
Oh, great, Robert, up there enjoying his cocktail in Dundee, Scotland. And Larry Pusker, we heard from Larry Pusker in St. Sterling Heights, Michigan. And Norma Pringle watches just up the road here in Mims. Yes, Jessica.
What time is it in Scotland right now?
It's about 4 hours difference. It's
4 hours ahead of us?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So
It's
late.
about 8 o'clock at
You
night, I
wrapping up
think.
is 9.
Could be
Okay.
9, but and of course it's just morning over there in New Zealand and Australia, where we've got Dean Salzwedel and other fans over there watching us. Christopher Mix in Hudson, Wisconsin, and we've got Tom and Mark Usiak. Hey guys, and they're going to send us some pictures of their shuttle launches, Jessica, that we're going to use as backgrounds. And this background today is courtesy of Derek Demeter, who's the planetarium director in Sanford, Florida, at I'm blacking out there. The planetarium up there is the,
Planetarium in Sanford.
yep, in Sanford at the college up there,
Okay.
Seminole State. And
I'm from Kansas. So I
but
don't know.
Derek took this as one of his trips in Colorado. That's where you get some good dark skies. And in fact, he is a monster of going around the country with his wife, doing all kinds of geology hunts and so forth. At the Emil Buehler Planetarium is where Derek Demeter is the director, and he's an absolutely fabulous photographer. And this is to show you what it could look like with a 30-second exposure in your camera on a tripod with about 2000 ISO when you're camping out this weekend in the Great Smoky Mountains or Colorado, or maybe you're in New England, Michigan, a lot of dark areas up there in Michigan, to do some stargazing tonight. And because the moon is rising after midnight, we won't be in the moon. Believe you me, brightness of the moon does knock out a lot of the fainter stars, and we just see the brightest stars. It's hard to see the Milky Way. But we will bring up what the sky looked like last week to give a demonstration of how close Jupiter and Saturn are to each other right after sunset. This was last week, okay, this is a week ago, from Sky and Telescope magazine, showing you how the moon moves. That moves this distance in one day from the 19th to the 20th is about 12.5 degrees, all right? And 29.5 times 12.5 is 360 degrees. Do the math. So the moon does move quite a bit to the left every day because it's going 22,100 miles an hour around the Earth. We're only rotating to the east at 1,100, so it's the fast sports car lapping us once every 29.5 days. So, but look how close Jupiter and Saturn are. You can't miss Jupiter. It's the brightest star in the east, and Saturn is soft yellow to the right of it. And Venus is the bright star in the west right after sunset. A lot brighter than Jupiter, but Jupiter and Venus are always the third and fourth brightest objects in the sky. Occasionally Mars, every 2 years, outshines Jupiter. But wanted to share some of the astrophotography of some of my friends around the country. And here is a picture from Johnny Horn in Stedman, North Carolina. Johnny is a contributor to, I think, Astronomy magazine or Sky and Telescope. Met Johnny decades ago at star parties. We become friends, asking permission to share his photos on Stay Curious. There you see at the bottom, Jessica, is the Jupiter and Jupiter and Saturn distance last week when the moon was near them. Johnny posted that, and so that's one of his fabulous telescope views. He's got a beautiful backyard observatory and knows how to maximize these pictures. And what they do, folks, is they take like 200 images, like a film, put them through a computer processing that pulls out all the good ones, stacks them together, and then you get a beautiful image like Johnny has there. And that is one of the Jupiter's moons, Callisto, and the shadow that it's casting on the great red spot there. Quite a unique opportunity to get that. I was going to show you what Johnny's pictures look like. And this is Jupiter from a friend of mine in Bristol, Tennessee, Paul Robinette. Hi, Paul. Thank you for letting me share these. That is Jupiter, and it's 4 moons to the left, to the right, pretty much like you're going to see it in a normal backyard telescope. You're not going to see it as fabulous here as Johnny Horn has it in there, because that's a photograph, and with a bigger telescope and a wonderful technique. Paul Robinette here has, I think, like an 8-inch reflector type telescope. But the moons will change within the hour. You go back and look at this an hour later, and these moons will be, a couple of them might have moved closer, and one may move further away. Yes?
Some overlap, too.
And they overlap in what we call transit in front of and go behind. And it's so cool to watch the moons go in the shadow that Jupiter's casting. So all of this data is on the Sky and Telescope or Astronomy magazine or in the internet. I have an app that tells me exactly which one of those moons are there. Then we're going to look at Jupiter through a telescope that I photographed, just a one image with a 35 millimeter camera smacked in this is probably about a 10-inch reflector. There's the Jupiter's red spot. But it's not stacked photography like we saw with Johnny Horns that gives you the clearer picture. But still, one-shot frame, you see the cloud bands of Jupiter and how flattened it is at the poles, because it spins every 10 hours. Though it's 10 times larger than the Earth in diameter. It's 88,000 miles across. We're just under 8,000. Its day is 10 hours, so it flattens it because of the centrifugal forces on there. So now we're going to look at gorgeous Saturn from Johnny Horn in Stedman, North Carolina. And this is what, if you're interested in astronomy, what you'll strive to get up to. Look at the difference in the Cassini division is the name of that black separation between the lighter and thinner outer ring and the brighter rings inside. And of course, the spacecraft that have been there show these rings to be like the grooves of a phonographic record, never ending. And these are ice, rock, different types of textures in there. But here's the mind-blowing thing I want you to understand about the rings of Saturn. Saturn is again about 70,000 miles across, all right? The rings go from almost from tip to tip, would go from the Earth to the moon. They're about 200,000 miles wide, okay, from end to end. But their thickness, at no point are the thickness of the rings more than 1/4 of a mile. That's right, I said no more than 1,250 feet. Isn't that incredible? That makes the ratio of these rings a sheet of paper 20 miles wide. That is what the ratio we're talking about there. So they're tenuous, and these tiny moons, there's moons even embedded in these, they call shepherd moons, that keep them stabilized. But this is a sheet of paper 20 miles wide in the ratio that you're looking at here. And they actually do go invisible. As seen from Earth, we see that the rings tilt. Right now they're at about a maximum they get, and they'll start closing up and closing up. From our perspective across the solar system, they'll be edge on in about 10 years. And I've seen that phenomenon, and it only happens 4 or 5 times in my lifetime. So hopefully I can see it again. But there's Johnny Horn's beautiful picture, what amateurs strive for. Here's one that I shot. Again, just a one image photo, but heck, I'm happy with it. You can see a hint of broadbands on there, but not the Cassini's division that we're looking at here. But you can see that division in a telescope. You can actually see it with your eye better than it can be photographed in a single frame. And then here's Paul Robinette. And this is how you're going to see it in a one of those $100 telescopes. There we go. One of those $100 telescopes that we are going to give you 2 Stay Curious Stargazer programs, okay, where we're doing Stargazer Mark on Mondays. We're going to do 2 of them about these inexpensive telescopes that I know you've got one in the garage somewhere or under the bed or in a closet. And then we're going to talk about some better telescopes on our Stay Curious Backyard Astronomy. I was thinking, what was the phrase Karen came up with? I'm not
Backyard astronomy.
right, but Stay Curious Stargazing.
Backyard astronomy with Stargazer Mark.
Stay gazing, or what? But so we want to just do things that you see in your backyard. This is most likely when you come to the American Space Museum this fall to look through. You're going to see a tiny little thing like that with the rings around it, but still, you know what everybody goes, oh my gosh, you've got that stuck on the building over there. That's a photo, isn't it? And then we'll put a little bit higher power on there and let you look at it like this. We can get it to look like this visually on some things. So a good weekend to get outside, get off this earth from all of our problems and woes, and do a little stargazing. Sit in your chair, get your star chart out there, and enjoy a little bit of activity. That was my last image, I think, wasn't it, Jessica? And but we're so glad that you're out there supporting us. We've got a wonderful, getting some interviews lined up. We've got Steve. We've got Steve. Oh yeah, the last one I have here is Venus. And why don't I talk much about looking at Venus through a telescope? Because it's boring. It looks just like a blob of white light because it's covered in 30-mile thick sulfuric poisonous clouds and a 900-degree surface that is about the size of Earth. But it would melt lead and all kinds of metals on the surface. And you see it bright in the west after sunset in a telescope. It does go through phases and just looks like a bright blob. So like I was saying, we've got a great week lined up for you next week. I've got a friend of our museum, Steve Kane, who is over Space Tech, a company that certifies space workers and not just in the aerospace industry, but airline industry also. And Steve was a quality control person during the shuttle era, and he's got some great stories to tell. And we're working on getting our favorite science nerd out there, Ken Kramer, in to help you with a little bit of space up close that he's famous for. And we're getting interviews lined up almost every week, and a good format that you're going to want to be following our program on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. And we know lots of you are enjoying YouTube from the comfort of your home on your big screen out there. So, and I think our chairman of the board, Charlie Mars, my lovingly called the Godfather, I think he watches it on YouTube. So that's worked out real great for us. And tell your friends to like us, subscribe to us, follow us, and share us. All right, on there. And I'm going to get back to my beautiful 1906 planisphere, we call these. It is no different than the one you can buy here at our museum or at any gift shop or bookstore to help you learn the constellations and help you to stay curious. And there it is right there, the sky tonight. All right. So hope you stay curious this weekend, looking at a little bit of stars and enjoying some space history. And we can't wait to bring you more space history and see you in our museum here in Titusville, Florida, to bridge the space between us.